This is a fictional American romance story created using AI for entertainment purposes only, intended strictly for audiences 18 years and older and not suitable for children under 18.
Chicago at night was a city of glass and reflection. From the 42nd floor of a downtown high-rise, the skyline stretched endlessly, steel towers shimmering under cold blue light, the river slicing through it all like a quiet secret. Inside the apartment, everything was still. Too still. Ryan Mercer stood by the window, loosening his tie with one hand while holding his phone in the other. Another email, another deal, another late night. Just 5 more minutes, he muttered, though no one was there to hear it. He didn't notice how often he said that anymore. Behind him, the apartment was pristine modern furniture, neutral tones, everything carefully curated. Elena had designed it that way. Clean, elegant, controlled. A life that looked perfect from the outside. A life that felt distant on the inside. The soft sound of the door unlocking broke the silence. Ryan glanced at the clock. 12:26 a.m. Late, he said under his breath. The door opened, and Elena stepped in. At first glance, she looked like she always did. Effortlessly beautiful, composed even after a long night. But then he noticed the details. Her steps were uneven, her lipstick slightly smudged, her eyes unfocused. "You're drunk," Ryan said, not accusing, just stating. Elena let out a quiet laugh, closing the door behind her with a soft thud. "Wow, you always did have a talent for the obvious." Her voice was lighter than usual, looser, like something had slipped past the filter she normally kept so tight. Ryan walked toward her. "You okay?" She nodded, though her balance suggested otherwise. "Just tired." He reached out, steadying her as she swayed slightly. For a brief moment she leaned into him, and in that moment something felt unfamiliar. Not wrong, just distant. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's get you to bed." She didn't argue. He guided her down the hallway, her arm loosely around his. The closeness should have felt natural. It used to. Now it felt like something they were both pretending hadn't changed. Inside the bedroom, the city lights filtered through sheer curtains, casting soft shadows across the walls. Ryan helped her sit, then knelt to remove her heels. "You didn't eat, did you?" he asked. She shook her head faintly. "You should have called me." "You were busy," she murmured. It wasn't bitter, that made it worse. Ryan paused for a second, then continued. When he finally helped her lie down, she exhaled deeply, already slipping into sleep. He pulled the blanket over her, then lingered, watching. There was a time when this taking care of her, being this close, felt like everything. Now it felt like something fragile, something already slipping. He brushed a strand of hair away from her face. "Get some rest," he said quietly. He turned to leave. Lucas Ryan froze. The word barely existed, soft, broken, almost lost in her breathing. But he heard it, clear as anything. Slowly he turned back. "Elena?" No response. Her eyes remained closed, her breathing steady, as if nothing had happened. Ryan stepped closer, his pulse beginning to rise. "Elena," he said again, softer. Nothing, just silence, but not the same silence as before. This one had weight. "Lucas," he repeated it under his breath, the name foreign on his tongue. It didn't belong in their life. It didn't belong to anyone he knew. And yet, it had come from her. From the woman who had shared his life for 7 years. Ryan felt something shift inside him. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet crack. "It's nothing," he told himself. "She's drunk." People said strange things when they were drunk. Names, memories, nonsense. It didn't mean anything. It couldn't. Still, he didn't move, because something, deep down, was already whispering a different truth. And for the first time in a long time, Ryan Mercer wasn't sure he wanted to hear it. Outside, the city kept glowing. Inside, something invisible had already begun to fall apart. Ryan didn't remember falling asleep. One moment, he was standing beside the bed, staring at Elena as if she might wake up and explain everything. The next, he was lying on his side of the mattress, eyes wide open in the dark, the ceiling stretching endlessly above him. The name hadn't left. Lucas. It lingered in the room like a scent he couldn't identify but couldn't ignore either. Beside him, Elena slept peacefully. Her breathing was slow, even untouched by whatever storm had just been dropped into his mind. One arm rested loosely over the blanket, her fingers slightly curled, as if holding onto something invisible. Ryan turned his head, watching her. There was no tension in her face, no guilt, no trace of whatever that name might have meant. That was what unsettled him the most. At 3:12 a.m., he gave up trying to sleep. Carefully, he slipped out of bed, moving quietly so he wouldn't wake her. The floor was cold under his feet as he walked out into the living room, the city lights casting faint reflections across the glass walls. He poured himself a drink. Whiskey, no ice. The first sip burned more than usual. Ryan stood there for a long time, staring out at the skyline, replaying the moment over and over again. The tone of her voice, soft, intimate, not random, not careless. It hadn't sounded like a name you forget. It had sounded like a name you miss. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "You're overthinking," he muttered. But the words didn't stick, because deep down, something had already shifted. Morning came too quickly. Sunlight filled the apartment with a calm that felt almost mocking. Elena was already awake. Ryan found her in the kitchen, standing by the counter in a silk robe, her hair tied loosely back. A cup of coffee rested in her hands, steam rising slowly into the air. She looked normal, completely, perfectly normal. "Morning," she said, glancing at him briefly. Ryan studied her for a second longer than usual. "Morning." He walked over, grabbing a mug, pouring himself coffee. The small, ordinary movements felt strangely heavy. "Rough night?" she asked. "A little." She gave a faint smile. "Same." There was no hesitation in her voice, no trace of memory. Ryan leaned against the counter, watching her. "Do you remember getting home?" "Barely," she admitted. "I remember the ride. After that, it's kind of a blur." He nodded slowly. "You were pretty out of it." "I figured," she said lightly. "Did I do anything embarrassing?" There it was, the opening. Ryan didn't answer right away. Instead, he held her gaze just long enough for the question to feel heavier than it should have. "You said something." Elena's expression shifted subtle, but there. "What do you mean?" "A name." A pause. It lasted maybe a second, but it was enough. "What name?" she asked. Ryan didn't look away. "Lucas." Silence. Not dramatic, not explosive, just stillness. Elena blinked, her brows pulling together slightly, not in guilt, but in confusion. "I don't know anyone named Lucas." Too clean, too immediate. Ryan felt it in his chest. "You're sure?" She let out a small breath, almost amused. "Ryan, I was drunk. I probably said something random." It didn't sound random. She tilted her head slightly, studying him now. Everything sounds meaningful when you're tired and overthinking. That stung more than he expected. "I'm not overthinking," he said quietly. "Then what are you doing?" she asked. The question hung between them. Ryan didn't have an answer, not one he was ready to say out loud. The rest of the morning unfolded like nothing had happened. Elena moved through the apartment with her usual grace, answering emails, taking a call, discussing a client project with calm precision. If she was hiding something, she was doing it flawlessly. Or she truly didn't remember. Somehow, that possibility made it worse. At work, Ryan found himself distracted. He sat in a glass-walled conference room, surrounded by colleagues discussing numbers, projections, strategies, but their voices blurred into background noise. "Ryan?" He blinked. "Sorry," he said, straightening slightly. "Can you repeat that?" His colleague nodded, continuing. But Ryan wasn't really listening. His mind kept drifting back. Not just to the name, but to everything around it. The way Elena had been lately. More distant, more contained. There were small things he had ignored. Late nights that didn't quite make sense. Phone calls she took in another room. A subtle shift in the way she looked at him. Not cold, not angry, just less present. At the time, he had told himself it was normal. People change, marriages evolve. But now, those small things felt like pieces of something else. Something he hadn't wanted to see. By the time he got home that evening, the apartment was quiet. Elena wasn't there. He checked his phone. A message. "Working late. Don't wait up." Ryan stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he typed back. "Okay. Simple. Neutral. Like everything else between them lately." He set his phone down and looked around the apartment. Everything was exactly where it should be. Perfect. Untouched. And yet, it felt different. Like he was standing in a place that looked like his life, but no longer felt like it. Ryan walked slowly toward the bedroom. For a brief second, he hesitated at the door. Then he stepped inside. The bed was neatly made. Elena sighed, untouched since morning. He sat down, exhaling slowly. His eyes drifted to her nightstand. Her phone wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. He leaned back slightly, staring at the ceiling. Lucas. This time when he said it, it didn't sound like nothing anymore. It sounded like the beginning of something. Something quiet. Something dangerous. Something that was already changing the way he looked at everything. Ryan closed his eyes, and for the first time, He didn't try to convince himself it meant nothing, because deep down, he already knew. Names like that don't appear by accident. Ryan didn't confront her again, not the next day, not the day after that. Instead, he did something far more dangerous. He watched. It started with small things. The way Elena checked her phone now, not constantly, not obsessively, but with a subtle awareness, like someone who expected something, or someone. The way her fingers lingered on the screen just a second longer before locking it. The way she smiled, not at him, at something unseen. Ryan noticed everything and said nothing. "You're quiet today," Elena remarked one evening, glancing up from her laptop. They were sitting across from each other at the dining table, plates half finished between them. The city lights reflected faintly in the glass behind her, framing her like a photograph. "I'm just tired," Ryan replied. She studied him for a moment longer than usual, as if trying to decide whether to believe him. "You've been tired a lot lately." "So have you." "A bit." Elena looked down at her plate. "Work's been busy." "Same." The conversation ended there, not because there was nothing more to say, but because neither of them chose to say it. Later that night, Ryan stood in the hallway outside their bedroom. The door was slightly open. Inside, Elena sat on the edge of the bed, her back to him, phone in hand. She wasn't typing, just reading. Then, a smile. Soft, private, unaware. Ryan felt something tighten in his chest. He stepped back before she could notice him. The next morning, he woke up earlier than usual. Elena was still asleep, her phone resting on the nightstand beside her. For a moment, he just stood there, looking at it. It wasn't locked away. It wasn't hidden. It was just there, normal, accessible. And yet, crossing that line felt like something irreversible. Ryan exhaled slowly, then turned away. Not yet. At work, he found himself distracted again, but this time not by uncertainty, by intent. At lunch, instead of meeting a client, Ryan sat alone at his desk, his laptop open. He typed slowly. Lucas, musician, Chicago. The results were immediate and overwhelming. Too many names, too many faces, too many lives that had nothing to do with his. He leaned back, frustrated. "This is pointless," he muttered. Of course it was. Lucas was a common name. It could be anyone, or no one. But then something clicked. Not logic, instinct. Ryan opened Elena's company website. Her latest projects were listed there, interior design portfolios, client showcases, collaborations. He scrolled through them carefully, project after project, until one caught his eye. The Ember Lounge. Private member club renovation. He clicked. Images loaded. Dim lighting, warm tones, velvet textures. A space designed for intimacy, for atmosphere, for escape. Ryan scanned the credits. Design, Elena Mercer. Lighting consultant. Art direction. And then, live music curation. Lucas Hale. Ryan's breath stilled. There it was. Not just a name. A connection. Real. Documented. Existing. He clicked the name. It led nowhere. No profile, no link. Just a name on a page. But it was enough. More than enough. That evening, Ryan didn't go home right away. Instead, he drove. No destination, just movement. The city blurred past him. Traffic lights, storefronts, people living lives that had nothing to do with his unraveling thoughts. Lucas Hale, he said under his breath. It sounded different now, heavier, defined. When he finally got home, Elena was already there. She stood in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine. "You're late," she said. "So are you," he replied. She smiled faintly. "Long day." Ryan set his keys down, watching her. "Elena." She looked up. A pause. "What?" He stepped closer. "I looked at your project, the Ember Lounge." Her expression didn't change. "It turned out well," she said. There was a name. Another pause. Smaller this time. "Okay, Lucas Hale." Silence. Not confusion this time. Recognition. Ryan saw it. Clear, undeniable. "You worked with him," Ryan continued. "Yes," she said simply. "How well do you know him?" Elena took a slow sip of her wine, setting the glass down before answering. Well enough to do my job. That's not what I asked. Her eyes met his, and for the first time there was something guarded there. What are you asking, Ryan? The question was calm, too calm. I'm asking why you said his name, he replied. A flicker, gone almost instantly. I told you I don't remember saying anything. But you know him. Yes, and you didn't think to mention that? Her jaw tightened slightly. It was Walk. Walk doesn't make people whisper names in their sleep. The words landed harder than he intended. Elena looked away for a second, then back at him. You're reading too much into this. Am I? Yes. Her voice was steady, but something underneath it wasn't. They stood there facing each other. Two people who knew each other intimately, and yet, in that moment, felt like strangers. That night, the silence between them was different. Not empty, heavy, filled with things unspoken. Ryan lay awake again, staring into the dark. But this time, the name didn't echo like a question. It settled like an answer. Lucas Hale, a real person, a real connection. And whatever existed between him and Elena was no longer just a suspicion. It was something waiting to be uncovered. Something that had already begun long before Ryan ever heard the name. The truth didn't arrive all at once. It unfolded slowly, quietly, like something that had been waiting for Ryan to notice. 3 days after he found the name Lucas Hale, Ryan stood outside the Amber Lounge. From the outside, it looked unremarkable. Dark glass, a discreet entrance, no loud signage. The kind of place that didn't need to announce itself. The kind of place people went to disappear. Ryan checked his watch. 8:42 p.m. He hadn't told Elena he'd be late. For once, he didn't feel the need to explain. Inside, the air was dim and warm, filled with low conversations and the soft hum of music drifting through the space. It was exactly the kind of environment Elena would design. Intimate, controlled, emotionally charged without being obvious. Ryan moved slowly, scanning the room. Then he heard it. A guitar. Not loud, not performative, just present. The kind of sound that didn't demand attention, but held it anyway. He followed it. Lucas Hale wasn't what Ryan expected. No stage, no spotlight. Just a man sitting on a low platform in the corner. Guitar resting against his thigh, fingers moving effortlessly across the strings. Mid-30s maybe, unpolished, unbothered. There was something unsettlingly calm about him, like someone who didn't need to prove anything. Ryan watched from a distance. Then, a shift in the room, a presence. He didn't need to turn to know, but he did. Elena. She stood near the bar, dressed simply nothing like the polished version she wore to galas or client meetings. Her hair fell naturally over her shoulders, her expression softer, unguarded. And she was watching Lucas, not casually, not professionally, but the way someone watches something that matters. Ryan felt it instantly, that look. He hadn't seen it directed at him in a long time. Lucas glanced up mid-song. Their eyes met, and in that moment, everything else disappeared. The music didn't stop, but something shifted, subtle, invisible to everyone else, not to Ryan. Elena walked toward him during the break. Ryan stepped back instinctively, keeping his distance, his presence hidden behind a column of shadow. He didn't want to interrupt. He wanted to see, to understand, to confirm what he already feared. You came, Lucas said, his voice low but warm. Elena smiled. Not the polite smile she gave clients, not the controlled one she wore in public. This one was real. I said I would. You usually don't keep promises, he teased lightly. That's not fair, she replied, but there was no real defense in her tone, just familiarity, comfort, history. Ryan's chest tightened. Lucas leaned his guitar against the chair, stepping closer to her. Long day? He asked. She nodded. Always. Still worth it? A pause. Elena hesitated, just for a second. I don't know anymore. The words were soft, but they landed like a crack in something fragile. Ryan felt his breath slow. This wasn't flirting, this wasn't casual. This was something deeper, something shared. Lucas studied her for a moment. You look tired, he said. I am. Then why are you here? Elena let out a quiet breath, her gaze dropping briefly before returning to him. Because this is the only place I don't feel like I'm pretending. Ryan felt it, sharp, immediate, unavoidable. Lucas didn't respond right away. He didn't need to. Instead, he reached out slowly, deliberately, and brushed a strand of hair away from her face, The gesture was simple, gentle, familiar, too familiar. Elena didn't pull away. She leaned into it, just slightly, but enough. That was the moment. Not the touch, not the words, but the way she closed her eyes for half a second, like she was resting in something she had been missing. Ryan looked away, because suddenly, it wasn't about whether she had crossed a line. It was about the fact that somewhere along the way, she already had. He left before the music started again, before they could see him, before he had to stand there any longer and watch his marriage reflected in someone else's eyes. The drive home was silent. Not because there was nothing to think about, but because there was too much. Every moment replayed itself. Every word, every look, every silence. And underneath it all, one truth settled in. This wasn't new. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't just physical. This was something that had been growing quietly while he was too busy to notice. When he got home, the apartment felt colder than usual. Or maybe it was just him. Ryan didn't turn on the lights. He stood in the dark, staring at nothing, trying to understand how something so important could slip away without him realizing it. The door opened around 11:30 p.m. Elena stepped in, pausing slightly when she saw him standing there. "You're home," she said. "I am." A beat. "You didn't tell me you'd be late." "I didn't think I had to." Her expression shifted. Subtle. Careful. "What does that mean?" Ryan turned toward her. "I went to the Amber Lounge." Silence. Real silence this time. Heavy. Unavoidable. Elena didn't speak. Didn't move. But something in her posture changed. Like a truth had just been dragged into the light. "I saw you," Ryan continued. His voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. "I saw the way you look at him." Her eyes closed briefly. Not in denial, in recognition. "It's not what you think," she said. But the words came too late and carried too little weight. Ryan stepped closer. "Then tell me what it is." She opened her eyes, looked at him, really looked. And for the first time, there were no walls, no filters, no careful distance, just honesty, raw and unprotected. "I don't know how to explain it," she said quietly. "Try." A long pause. Then, "He sees me." The words were almost a whisper. Ryan felt something in his chest tighten. "I've always seen you." "No," she said gently. "You've provided for me. You've built a life for us. You've been everything you were supposed to be." Her voice didn't accuse. That made it worse. But she continued, her voice breaking slightly. "He listens. He notices things you don't even realize you've stopped seeing." Ryan swallowed hard. "That doesn't justify this." "I'm not trying to justify it." "Then what are you doing?" Elena's eyes filled, but she didn't look away. "I'm telling you the truth." And that was the moment Ryan understood. Not because she admitted to an affair, not because of what he saw, but because of what he felt. The distance, the absence, the quiet space where something used to exist. "You love him?" he asked. The question came out before he could stop it. Elena didn't answer right away, and that silence was louder than anything she could have said. Ryan nodded slowly. Once, like something inside him had just settled into place. Not anger, not rage, something colder, clearer. "Okay," he said, just one word, but it carried everything. That night they slept in the same bed, but whatever had held them together before was gone. Not shattered, not destroyed, just no longer there. And for the first time, Ryan didn't wonder if something was wrong. He knew, because what Elena had given someone else wasn't just her body. It was the part of her he didn't even realize he had already lost. The confrontation didn't happen right away, not that night, not the morning after, because some truths are too heavy to face all at once, and both of them knew it. 3 days passed in a strange, suspended silence. They moved around each other like strangers sharing the same space. Short conversations, functional words, no eye contact that lasted too long, no mention of Lucas, no mention of that night. But it was there, in every pause, in every unfinished sentence. On the 4th evening it finally broke. Ryan came home earlier than usual. The apartment was quiet, dimly lit, the city outside fading into a muted grey dusk. Elena stood by the kitchen counter, a glass of wine untouched in her hand. She didn't look surprised to see him. "You're early," she said softly. Ryan closed the door behind him. "We need to talk." There was no hesitation this time, no avoidance. Elena nodded slowly. "I know." They didn't sit, didn't soften the space between them. They stood facing each other in the middle of the living room, like two people who understood that whatever came next would change everything. Ryan spoke first. How long? No anger in his voice, just clarity. Elena's fingers tightened slightly around the glass. A few months. The answer came too easily, too honestly. Ryan let out a slow breath, nodding once. And you didn't think to tell me? I didn't know how. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Silence stretched between them. Ryan studied her face, not searching for lies anymore. Searching for something else. Is it still going on? He asked. Elena hesitated. Not long, but long enough, yes. The word landed quietly, but it echoed. Ryan looked down for a moment, then back at her. And you come home to me after? It wasn't a question. Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. Yes. Something shifted in the room. Not explosive, not dramatic, just irreversible. Why? Ryan asked. And this time there was something in his voice. Not anger, not yet, but something closer to pain. Elena set the glass down carefully, as if even that small movement required control. I didn't plan this, she said. I didn't ask if you planned it. She swallowed. I felt invisible. The word hung in the air. Ryan frowned slightly. Invisible? Yes. He let out a short, disbelieving breath. You have everything, Elena. I know. Do you? Her eyes met his. And there it was again, that quiet honesty that made everything harder to dismiss. You gave me a beautiful life, she said. You worked hard. You provided. You did everything right. Then what's the problem? You stopped seeing me. The words were soft, but they cut deeper than anything else. Ryan shook his head slightly. That's not fair. I'm not saying it to hurt you. Then why say it? Because it's true. He looked away, running a hand through his hair. I was building a future for us, and I was living in the present alone. That landed, harder than anything before. Ryan turned back to her. So you found someone else? Elena didn't respond immediately. I found something I didn't even realize I was missing, she said quietly. And what is that? She hesitated. Then, being understood. Ryan laughed once, short, hollow. You think I don't understand you? I think you stopped trying. Silence again, thicker this time. He stepped closer. And you think he does? Elena didn't answer, but she didn't need to. Ryan's jaw tightened. You love him? There it was again. The question he shouldn't have asked, but needed to. Elena closed her eyes for a brief moment. When she opened them, there were tears but no attempt to hide them. I don't know, she said. Ryan stared at her. You don't know? I didn't go looking for this, Ryan, she said, her voice trembling now. It just happened, and now I don't know how to untangle it. That's convenient, he replied, his tone colder now. It's not convenient, it's a mess. A mess you created. Yes, she didn't argue, didn't defend, just accepted it. That stopped him for a second, because he expected denial, excuses, not this. I never meant to hurt you, she added quietly. Ryan let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. That's the problem, Elena. He looked at her, really looked. You didn't mean anything. The words hit. He saw it, but he didn't take them back. I kept telling myself it wasn't serious, she said, her voice breaking now. That it would just fade. That I could fix this before you ever found out. But you didn't. No. Another silence. But this one felt like the end of something. Not the argument, something bigger. Ryan nodded slowly, as if confirming something only he could see. Do you want to stay married? He asked. The question caught her off guard. What? It's a simple question. Her lips parted slightly, then closed. Then I don't know. That was it. That was the moment. Not the affair, not the lies, not even Lucas, but this, the uncertainty, the absence of a clear choice. Ryan felt something inside him settle. Not break, not explode, just settle. Like a decision had been made somewhere deeper than emotion. I do, he said. Elena looked at him, confused. What? I know, he repeated. A pause. Then, quietly, I don't. The words didn't register immediately, but when they did, Elena's expression changed. Ryan, but he shook his head. Not angry, not loud, just final. You should have known, he said softly. Not about him, about us. Her eyes filled again. I was trying. No, he interrupted gently. You were drifting. He stepped back, creating space. Real space this time. I can't compete with something you don't even understand, he continued, and I won't stay somewhere I'm not chosen. Elena's voice trembled. I never stopped choosing you. Ryan looked at her for a long moment, then shook his head. You just stopped knowing why. That was the last thing he said, because there was nothing left to argue, nothing left to explain. That night, they didn't sleep in the same room, and for the first time, it didn't feel temporary. Something had ended, not loudly, not violently, but in the quiet, undeniable realization that love, once uncertain, is already halfway gone. The decision didn't come with clarity. It came with silence. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Ryan sat alone in his office, long after everyone else had left. The city outside was dim, the glass walls reflecting his own still figure back at him. A contract lay open on his desk, untouched. His phone buzzed once, then again, emails, notifications, reminders of a life that kept moving forward whether he was ready or not. But Ryan wasn't thinking about work. He was thinking about home, or what used to feel like one. The past few weeks had been careful. Polite conversations, coordinated schedules, quiet meals eaten across from each other like two people honoring an obligation rather than sharing a life. Elena had ended things with Lucas. She told him that one evening, standing in the same spot where everything had unraveled. I ended it, she said softly. It's over. Ryan had nodded. That's good. But something about his response had felt distant. Not relieved, not grateful, just acknowledging information. Because it was already too late. Ending Lucas didn't erase what had happened. It didn't undo the nights she had chosen someone else. It didn't bring back the version of her that had once looked at him like he was enough. And most of all, it didn't silence the question that still lingered. If I hadn't found out, would you have stopped? Ryan never asked it, because he already knew the answer. That night, he drove home without turning on the radio. The city blurred past him, familiar and distant at the same time. When he walked into the apartment, Elena was sitting on the couch, her laptop close beside her. She looked up immediately. You're late. I know. A pause. You've been working a lot. So have you. The same pattern, the same anti-exchange. Ryan set his keys down, then stood there for a moment longer than usual. Elena. She straightened slightly. Yes? He didn't sit, didn't soften it. I spoke to a lawyer today. The words landed quietly, but they changed everything. Elena didn't react right away, as if her mind needed a second to catch up. Then, what do you mean? Ryan met her eyes. I'm filing for divorce. The room went completely still. Even the city noise outside seemed to fade. Elena stood up slowly, shaking her head almost instinctively. No, her voice was soft, disbelieving. You don't mean that. I do. She took a step toward him. Ryan, we said we would try. No, he interrupted gently. You said that. Her expression tightened. I ended things with him. I know. Then why are you doing this? Ryan exhaled slowly, not out of frustration, out of something heavier. Because that's not the point. Elena's eyes searched his face. Then what is? Ryan hesitated, just for a moment, as if choosing words that couldn't fully carry what he felt. The point is, he began quietly, I shouldn't have to lose you to someone else before you realize I matter. That landed. He saw it. The way her shoulders dropped slightly, the way her breath caught. I always knew you mattered, she said, her voice trembling now. Ryan shook his head. No. You knew I was there. Silence. I chose you, she insisted. You chose both of us. The words were calm, but final. Elena stepped closer. This was a mistake, a terrible one, but it doesn't have to define everything. Ryan looked at her, and for a moment, he saw the woman he had fallen in love with. The one who used to laugh easily, who used to reach for him without hesitation, who used to feel like home. But that version of her felt distant now, like a memory he could touch, but not return to. I still love you, she said. And this time, he believed her. That was what made it harder. Ryan nodded slowly. I know. A pause. Then, softer. I still love you too. Elena's eyes filled instantly. Then don't do this. He closed his eyes briefly, just a second, as if allowing himself to feel it fully before letting it go. I can't stay in something that made me question my own worth, he said quietly. She shook her head, tears slipping now. I'm trying to fix it. I know you are. Then let me. Ryan looked at her for a long moment, and in that silence, everything they had been, everything they had lost, everything they could have been, hung between them. I would always wonder, he said finally. Her brow furrowed. Wonder what? If I was enough, he replied. That was it. Not anger, not betrayal, just that. Elena's voice broke. You were always enough. Ryan gave a faint, almost sad smile. Then why did it take losing me for you to see it? She had no answer. And that was the answer. Ryan stepped back, creating distance that felt permanent now. I'm not leaving because I don't love you, he said. I'm leaving because I finally love myself enough not to stay. The words settled into the room like something irreversible. Elena covered her mouth, trying to hold back the emotion spilling over. Ryan, please. But he shook his head gently. Not cold, not cruel, just done. Some things break quietly, he said, and by the time you hear it, it's already too late. He picked up his keys again, not to leave the apartment, not yet. But something had already shifted. That night, they slept in separate rooms again. But this time, it wasn't a pause. It was the beginning of an ending. And somewhere between love and self-respect, Ryan had finally chosen. 5 years changed everything. But not all at once, not dramatically, just steadily. Chicago still looked the same from above. The skyline hadn't changed. The river still cut through the city like a quiet divide. The lights still flickered at night, indifferent to the lives unfolding beneath them. But Ryan Mercer had. Mr. Mercer, they're ready for you. Ryan adjusted his cufflinks, glancing briefly at his reflection in the glass wall beside him. Calm, composed. Not the man who once stood frozen in the dark, undone by a single whispered name. Give me a minute, he said. Of course. The assistant stepped away. Ryan exhaled slowly, rolling his shoulders once before turning toward the conference room. Another deal. Another room full of people waiting for his decision. But this time it didn't feel like something he needed to prove. It was simply part of his life. Good morning, everyone, he said as he entered. Confident, grounded, present. The meeting unfolded smoothly, numbers aligned, agreements formed. There was respect in the room, not forced, not performative, but earned. Ryan listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, people listened. By the time he stepped out of the building, the late afternoon sun had softened the edges of the city. His phone buzzed. A message. Clara, are you done saving the world yet? Ryan smiled. For real. Ryan, almost. Where are you? Clara, same place. And I'm not ordering without you this time. He shook his head lightly, already turning toward his car. The restaurant was small, quiet, tucked between two larger buildings like a place that didn't need attention to exist. Clara Hay sat by the window, sunlight catching in her hair as she looked up the moment he walked in. There you are, she said, smiling. And just like that, everything else faded. You waited, Ryan said, sliding into the seat across from her. I said I would. You're learning patience. I'm learning you're always late. He chuckled softly. Fair. There was no tension here, no careful words, no distance hidden beneath politeness, just ease. Clara reached across the table, brushing her fingers lightly against his. How was the meeting? Good. That's your version of I dominated the room, right? Ryan smiled slightly. Something like that. She studied him for a second. You're different, you know. He raised an eyebrow. That's a good thing? It's a peaceful thing. Peace. The word settled somewhere deep. Because that's what it was. Not excitement, not intensity, not the kind of love that felt like it might break you, but something steadier, something that didn't make him question himself. You don't carry things the same way anymore, Clara continued softly. Ryan leaned back slightly, considering that. Some things aren't worth carrying forever. She nodded. Good. Later that evening, they walked along the river. The air was cooler now, the city lights reflecting across the water in long, quiet streaks. Clara slipped her hand into his, naturally, without hesitation. Ryan didn't think about it, he just held on. You ever think about the past? She asked suddenly. He glanced at her. Sometimes. Does it still hurt? Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then, no, not anymore. And that was the truth. Across the city, in a very different part of Chicago, Elena Mercer stood alone in a small, dim apartment. The silence here was different, not peaceful, empty. The walls were bare, the furniture mismatched. A single lamp cast a weak yellow light across the room. Nothing about it reflected who she used to be, or maybe it reflected exactly who she had become. Her phone sat on the table in front of her. No notifications, no missed calls, no one waiting. Lucas had been gone for years. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just gradually, like everything else. It's not working anymore, he had said back then, and she had known, before he even finished the sentence. What they had shared, it had never been built to last. It was something that existed in a moment, a feeling, an escape, and when reality caught up, there was nothing left to hold on to. Elena sank onto the couch, her eyes drifting toward the window. The view wasn't a skyline anymore, just another building, another life she didn't belong to. She thought about Ryan sometimes, not obsessively, not constantly, but in quiet moments like this. The way he used to look at her, the way he had stood there, calm, certain, choosing to walk away. I'm leaving because I finally love myself enough not to stay. His words hadn't faded. If anything, they had become clearer over time. Elena closed her eyes briefly, exhaling slowly. She had thought she understood what she was risking. She hadn't, not really. Because losing Ryan hadn't just been losing a husband. It had been losing stability, respect, a version of herself that no longer existed. Now, there was just silence, and the quiet weight of choices that couldn't be undone. Back by the river, Ryan and Clara stopped walking. She turned to him, studying his face in the soft glow of the city lights. "What?" he asked. "Nothing," she said, smiling. "Just you look happy." Ryan held her gaze, and for a moment he thought about everything it had taken to get here. The loss, the anger, the quiet rebuilding of something inside himself. Then he nodded. "I am." Clara smiled, leaning in to kiss him gently, and this time there was no hesitation, no doubt, no shadow of something unfinished, just certainty. Two people, two lives, moving in completely different directions, and somewhere between them, time had done what neither of them could. It had revealed the truth, that some choices don't just change a moment, they change everything that comes after. It was raining the day she came back. Not the kind of rain that stormed or demanded attention, just a quiet, steady fall that blurred the edges of the city and softened everything it touched. Ryan almost didn't notice her. The cafe sat on a corner just off the river. Warm light, fogged windows, the low hum of conversation blending with the sound of rain against the glass. He came here often, not out of habit, out of peace. "Another black coffee?" Ryan glanced up, offering a small smile to the barista. "Yeah, thanks." He stepped aside, pulling his phone from his coat pocket, scanning through emails without really reading them. His life was full now, not crowded, not overwhelming, just full. "Ryan?" The voice was soft, uncertain, familiar in a way that didn't belong to the present. He froze, just for a second, then slowly turned. Elena stood a few feet away, and for a moment, time didn't rewind. It didn't soften. It didn't fix anything. It just showed him the difference. She looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in presence. The confidence she once carried so effortlessly had faded into something quieter, fragile. Her coat was worn, her hair pulled back without care, her eyes tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. This wasn't the woman who used to walk into a room and own it. This was someone who had lost something she couldn't get back. "Hi," she said. Ryan didn't respond immediately. Not out of shock, not out of anger, just processing. "Hi," he said finally. There was a pause, awkward, heavy, filled with everything that had once existed between them. "I didn't expect to see you," she said. "I come here sometimes." She nodded, as if filing that away like it mattered. "Can we talk?" she asked. Her voice was careful, like she already knew she didn't have the right to ask. Ryan hesitated, not because he didn't know what she wanted, but because he did. Then he nodded once. "Okay." They sat across from each other, the same way they used to, but nothing about it felt the same. For a while, neither of them spoke. The barista called out orders in the background. Cups clinked. Rain tapped steadily against the window. Life continued, unaffected. Elena wrapped her hands around the cup in front of her, though she hadn't taken a sip. "I've thought about this moment a lot," she said quietly. Ryan didn't respond. He just listened. "I didn't know if I'd ever actually get the chance," she continued. Her fingers tightened slightly around the cup, "but I hoped I would." Ryan leaned back slightly. "Why?" The question wasn't harsh, just honest. Elena looked up at him, and for the first time there were no defenses left. "Because I owe you an apology," she said. "And?" Her voice faltered slightly. "And because I was wrong." Ryan held her gaze, said nothing. "I thought I understood what I was doing back then," she continued. "I thought I knew what I needed, what I was missing." A small broken laugh escaped her. "I didn't." Silence. "I lost everything," she said. Not dramatically, just truthfully. Ryan's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened, just a little. "Elena, I'm not asking you to fix it," she interrupted quickly. "I know I can't undo what I did. I know I don't deserve that." Her voice trembled now. "I just needed you to know that I see it now. All of it." Ryan exhaled slowly. "I believe you." She blinked, surprised. "You do?" "Yes." Another pause. "Then, that's it?" she asked quietly. Ryan tilted his head slightly. "What else were you expecting?" Her lips parted, closed again, then finally. "I was hoping," she hesitated, her voice barely holding together, "that maybe there was still something left." There it was. Not just apology. Hope. Ryan looked at her for a long moment, really looked. At the woman she was now, and the woman she used to be, and everything in between. Then he shook his head, gently. "No." The word didn't echo, didn't crash, it just settled. Final. Elena's breath caught. "I know I don't deserve another chance." "It's not about deserve," Ryan said calmly. She stopped. "It's about where I am now," he continued. Elena's eyes searched his face. "And where is that?" Ryan didn't hesitate. "Not there anymore." Silence, longer this time, heavier. "I changed," she whispered. "I know. I'm not that person anymore." Ryan nodded slightly. "I believe that too." Hope flickered, just for a second. "Then why?" "Because I'm not that person anymore either." That was it. That was the truth she couldn't argue with. Elena looked down, her hands trembling slightly now. "I thought if I could just explain, if you could just see." "I do see," Ryan said gently. She looked up, tears finally falling freely. "And that's why I can't go back." The words weren't cold, they weren't cruel, they were peaceful. "I loved you," he continued, in a way that made me forget about myself. A pause. "I won't do that again." Elena closed her eyes, the weight of it finally settling in. Not rejection, not punishment, just consequence. "I'm happy now," Ryan added. That one hurt, more than anything else. "With her?" Elena asked softly. Ryan didn't look away. "Yes." The tear slipped down her cheek. She nodded slowly. "I'm glad." She meant it. That was the tragedy, because now she understood. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. Ryan gave a small nod. "I know." They sat there a moment longer, not as husband and wife, not even as lovers, just two people who had once shared everything and now shared nothing but memory. Ryan stood first. Elena looked up at him, as if memorizing the moment. "Take care of yourself," he said. She nodded. "You too." He hesitated, just briefly, then turned and walked away. He didn't look back, not because it didn't matter, but because it didn't need to. Outside, the rain had softened. The city moved on. Inside the cafe, Elena sat alone. The chair across from her empty. The space between them finally complete. And for the first time, she understood something that came too late to change anything. Some doors don't slam shut. They close quietly. And no matter how much you regret it, they don't open again.